We are Southeastern 16, covering SEC football, and then we're going to talk some Texas Longhorns football. There's a big one this weekend. Texas, number 1 team in the country, hosting number 5 Georgia. We're going to break it down with Mike Hardge. He is with AM 1300 out there in Austin, Texas. So we'll talk some Texas football right after we tell you about Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number 1 source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, live odds, and spreads to bet on during the games. The largest catalog of odds on everything from football, got the Major League Baseball playoffs going on, NHL, NBA, to political props. When the game's over, head over to the online casino. They've got blackjack, poker, over 150 slots games. So head over to the website today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, Mike, big weekend. I know, look, it's got to be exciting right now in Austin, Texas. Number 1 team in the country. They've been playing great football. You got to win over their rival, Oklahoma and Dallas on Saturday. I mean, what's the vibe around Texas right now?
Well, this is actually the game that everybody's been talking about. They've been waiting for this moment, for this matchup. It's been a long time since Sam Ehlinger stood on that stage and talked about Texas is back. Sam is in the NFL. Tom Herman is coaching at Florida Atlantic. And now Coach Sarkisian goes up against his good friend Kirby Smart with 2 teams that are ranked in the top 5. The vibe around Austin, Texas is hurry up and get to Saturday, because everybody, like I said, been wanting this matchup, been needing this matchup, and 2 of the top teams that were predicted to finish 1 and 2 in the top of the conference to be able to play this game on a Saturday in October where the weather's supposed to be that cool 82 degrees. That's what it's all about.
How is this team built? Sark did a great job, I feel like, of going and get some great pieces in the offseason out of the portal, and he recruits well. But how do you see this Texas team built this year?
It was one of those deals where we knew that the offense was going to be good. We just didn't know how good this defense was going to be. A lot of people were talking about the fact that Texas lost so much in the draft for the first time in a very long time. 11 guys drafted into the NFL. Well, this year it seems like the story is the defense, the nation's leader in total defense. Everybody's changing the narrative now. Oh, well, Texas hadn't played anybody. Oh, they got a schedule. Well, looking at their schedule and the results of what has happened thus far, Texas has a tough schedule remaining in front of them. None bigger than this weekend. So the biggest story for us in Austin, Texas, has been the emergence of this defense. If you go back and look at last year's team, the secondary was much maligned. Well, what did they do? They went in the transfer portal and went and got an Andrew Makuba. Then you look at Gavin Holmes, who was here the year before. He came in and was part of the secondary as well. So the improvement with the secondary and then the replacing of Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy has paid dividends thus far with some of the moves that were made.
And you look at defensively, again, for Texas and what they've been able to do this year. I mean, Colorado State did not score. Michigan scored 12. UTSA 7. Louisiana Monroe 3. Mississippi State 13. Oklahoma 3. Like, that in itself says a lot about not only is Texas able to score points, but they're stopping offenses who have good players from scoring. I mean, you look at the scoring column and say, wow, this is a top-level defense.
Yeah, and the ironic thing about all of that, this past weekend was the first time that Texas actually trailed in a ball game all season long. This was the first time with Oklahoma scoring those 3 points in the first quarter, and that came off of a turnover. So you start to look at what this team has been capable of doing and how they've handled their business, the rallying cry, so to speak, of this defense of the Texas Longhorns. It's been nothing short of impressive. You know, Pete Kwiatkowski is one hell of a coach, but the Jerry Nassen coming in as well, coming in from Arizona and creating another partnership with PK has been perfect. It's been a match made in heaven on the defensive side. But the one thing that always stands out about this Texas football team, whether it's on the offense or the defensive side of the ball, they've got speed on top of speed on top of speed. And I think that has been the biggest adjustment that we have seen thus far.
And talking offense now, I mean, that was obviously when you have a Steve Sarkisian coach team, you talk about offense, brilliant offensive coach, to me, the most creative offensive coach in the country. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, you know you got depth in the quarterback room. I feel like there's just depth all over the field. You could say that on defense too, but to me, that's what stands out about this team is there's so much depth in so many different positions. And Quinn Ewers gets hurt. Okay, you put Arch Manning in, and he continues doing the same thing. So I feel like depth is huge for this team.
Yeah, and that's something that they didn't have when Coach Sark first got here. You remember the 5 and 7 year, there wasn't very much depth. As a matter of fact, when Texas tried to do the spring game that year, they couldn't because the offensive line had to play both times. They had to play with the first team and the second team, so you couldn't have two separate teams. Well, now you have so many players, you got a third and a fourth team that is able to go out there and play. And that's the thing too. You're coming into the SEC, and we all remember Texas isn't ready for the SEC when the announcement was first made. Oh, they're going to get destroyed when they get into this conference. Well, they took it to heart. They went out and found the depth that they needed. And by the time they walked into the SEC, they were SEC ready. You know, when Coach Sark first took the job, he talked about big humans. We're not ready to go there. He even said it himself, but he went and got big humans. And now every position on that offensive line, and you've covered the SEC for quite some time now, you know, if you can't win in the trenches, you can't win. And that is what he's done. He's done it both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball.
And that brings up a point, you know, with people saying, you know, will Texas fit in the SEC? I mean, they showing they are nicely. Do you feel like Sark's experience being in the SEC, working at Alabama, you feel like that is something that maybe helped him know, hey, this is the roster it's going to take to be successful in this conference?
Oh, no doubt about it. Because, you know, we've been covering the Big 12 for so long, and the SEC, we saw that from afar. But when Coach Sark comes in, he starts changing the dynamic of the culture of the program, but also the offensive and defensive line. He knew what it looked like. I mean, think about when he was at Alabama, all the weapons and all the people that he had on that squad, it was ready to go, and he knew that. So he knows what it looks like, and they always talk about imitating art, you know, and that's exactly what he saw. He saw this picture, and he said, that is what I have to build at the University of Texas. And now he's built it, and now it's got some staying power.
As far as the quarterbacks go, Quinn Ewers just a tremendous quarterback, and I thought he had a good day coming back. He was 20-29 Saturday against Oklahoma, and you look at the season, even you know, battling the injuries that he's had a great year. What does Quinn Ewers mean to not only the team this year, but just to Texas and what he's done with the Longhorns?
Well, it's funny you say that, because the fans that I was sitting with at the game was like, put in Arch right away, because he's kind of started off slow, but then he found his rhythm. And now going into this week, I think we'll see the better version of Quinn Ewers. But Quinn Ewers is the reason why this team is able to be successful. He is the foundation. It's kind of like that relationship between he and Sark. They can finish each other's sentences now because they've been together for so long. He knows what the calls are. He knows what the look is. It's an understanding of this offense that a lot of people truly don't have the general idea of it. Their relationship has been so different because I've got a chance to watch them grow together, and the understanding of the nuances of a Sark-led offense and play calling. Quinn has that inside and out, and I think you'll see a better version of Quinn Ewers. As Quinn goes, this team goes, and even though he was out and Arch was in, he was the one on the sideline. He still had the earpiece in. He was still listening to all the calls, and he was definitely involved in firing up his teammates.
All right, so the matchup Saturday as Georgia rolls into Austin. How do you see this matchup? Maybe strengths and weaknesses as these two teams face each other.
Well, for Georgia, I got a chance to listen to Kirby Smart's press conference yesterday, and he was very complimentary of the things that his team was able to do and what he's seen on film from the University of Texas. For me, the one thing about Georgia that always stands out is that game against Alabama, they could have folded. They didn't. They stayed in the battle and they fought all the way back and was able to make it an actual game, and definitely could have won that game if they would have got one stop late in the ball game. Then we're looking at possibly number 1 versus number 2, as opposed to number 1 versus number 5 this weekend. I just think that the way that Texas's team attacks people, that's the biggest thing that I want to look at. How does Georgia take a punch and respond to that punch when you're looking at a team like Texas? Because just like that game against Alabama, it's talent on top of talent. It's speed on top of speed. It is top 5 recruiting classes on top of top 5 recruiting classes. This is truly a clash of the Titans that everybody is looking for. If I'm going to say that there's going to be one weakness on Georgia, I think it's the running game right now. I don't think that the running game is at that level of what we're used to seeing in the Georgia Bulldogs, and a lot is being put on Carson Beck. And as far as a weakness for Texas, we got to figure out what's going to happen with Quinn. Is he going to be that guy that starts slow? Because if you start too slow against a Georgia team, you can't put your defense behind the chains that many times and expect them to come through. So I want to see the matchups on the skill positions, but most importantly, as I said just a little while ago, the battle of the trenches. That offensive line is very experienced for the University of Texas, as is the defensive line for Georgia. So this is a battle that we're going to be looking for, a trenches battle.
Yeah, and it should definitely be fun. And talking about the offense for Texas, couple of running backs have really stood out to me the last couple of weeks. Talk about just the running back room, because I feel like that's another room with depth. But again, even injury in the early in the season, guys having to step up. Like, this is a really talented running back room.
Well, it's funny that you say that because of the injuries that were there and the depth that has been provided. You look at this team and you firmly believe that Coach Sark, and Tashard Choice, by the way, is one hell of a recruiter, and he is one hell of a motivator when it comes to these backs. He has them all believing that they are number 1 backs, and they carry themselves as number 1 backs. Trey Wisner, number 26, has emerged as a budding superstar. He got his opportunity. Last year, he was a special teams hero. And for him to come into the season, he was supposed to be behind C.J. Baxter. He was supposed to be behind Jaden Blue. And then, of course, you got Jarrett Gibson, the 5-star out of IMG, and you brought in Christian Clark from Arizona. So you're sitting there looking at this running backs room is like, wow, look at what is happening. Well, you have C.J. Baxter and Christian Clark go down. You had Jaden Blue have some fumble issues, and Wisner got in there and just took over the spot and has played unbelievable. Had his first 100-yard rushing game last week against Oklahoma in a rivalry game, in a game that was played in front of his family and friends from the city of Dallas. So it was impressive. But it goes back to your point. You have to have depth in order to compete at this level in the SEC. And to your point, they have it. Then it's been very impressive to watch.
All right. Before we let you go, what would you say are a couple of keys for Texas if they want to win this game on Saturday against number 5 Georgia?
They have to control the football. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the time of possession, because I found out that the time of possession doesn't mean anything in these types of games, because Texas is teams are holding on the ball longer than Texas, but Texas is outscoring them by an astronomical number. So that really doesn't play out in my mind. But to me, it's got to make sure that you take care of the football. If this has a chance of being a blowout, and I don't see that happening, by the way, you cannot turn the ball over as much as Texas has in the recent times. And for Georgia, they have to do the same thing. Which Carson Beck are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that threw for 459 last week and was able to make some plays with his legs? Or are we going to get the one that Texas defense can confuse a little bit? Those are going to be my keys to the game.
Well, good deal. Looking forward to it Saturday night. It should be a great atmosphere, I imagine, there in Austin, Texas, and a fun game. Number one, Texas hosting number 5, Georgia. Man, I really appreciate you coming on, talking some Texas football with us today. We will have to do it again soon, but thanks for coming on.
Hey, no problem. Just remember, F1 is in town as well. So there's going to be a ton of people. So get here early, move around, and do what you got to do, because it's going to be crazy in the city of Austin, Texas.
That'll be fun. We'll be live following the game right here on Southeastern 16, so subscribe, and we'll have our live reaction following all the games Saturday, so check us out. We are Southeastern 16 as we provide coverage of SEC football, basketball, baseball daily, and we're presented to you by BetOnline.